Hi.
Hey, Brittany, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome.
Please give us a brief bio on yourself.
Well, I'm 26 years old, and I haul for a living. I'm all over the country, and when I am home, I'm out with the horses, and that's about it. That's my life.
Well, that sounds like a good life to me. I love horses. Brittany, where did your encounter happen?
It happened in Central PA. It's like 45 minutes northwest from Paulides. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's pretty much all woods. There's a few corn crops, and our closest neighbor at that time, I think, was like a mile and a half down the road. It was some old guy, but that's about it. We didn't even have a red light in our town.
Those are some of the most mountainous parts of Pennsylvania, aren't they?
Yeah, we're pretty much on the side of, what the heck is it called, Snowshoe Mountain. It starts up there, and then it works its way around us.
Yeah, I thought that's how it was. Your encounter happened when you were 7. What kind of complications do you think that caused you to suffer through that you might not have had to deal with if you'd had that encounter when you were older?
I don't know if it really would have changed anything. Maybe I would have been able to explain it better, but that would have been about it. Maybe I would have had a little bit more credibility, because when you're like a kid, everyone's like, oh, you're just, making up something, or, you're exaggerating. I think that probably would have been the only difference.
For you, was that frustration you felt when people told you that basically you hadn't seen what you saw that day? Was that frustration from that side of this almost as bad as the encounter itself, seeing something as terrifying as what you saw that day?
I wouldn't say it as bad as seeing it, but it was definitely frustrating.
Oh, I'm sure it was. It's a shame you have to go through that. For a long time, you called what you saw a bear dog. Where did that name come from?
Well, at the time, that's the only thing I knew was stuff out in the woods that normal people see, like bear, dog, deer, some coyotes here and there, maybe a mountain lion, some turkeys. That's it. I never knew what this was. I wasn't allowed to watch, scary movies and stuff when I was a kid, so I didn't know what it was. Heck, the scariest thing I seen as a kid was Jurassic Park.
Did people in your area talk about seeing something back then that looked like something crossed between a bear and a dog?
No, nothing I can remember. I mean, we've always been a hunting family, a fishing family, and pretty much my family out there. I mean, we have neighbors and stuff, but it's a pretty tight-knit community. I didn't hear of anything.
Well, if your closest neighbors were a mile or so away, there are a lot of places in between your property and theirs where something like this could roam and never be seen, so maybe they hadn't seen anything like that. Before you had your encounter, what kinds of things did you do in the woods, and how much time did you spend in it?
Oh, we were always out in the woods. All the time. Even in the wintertime, it was my favorite thing. It's snow, and we'd go out there, and it's like a winter wonderland. That's all we had out there. We didn't have anything else. We didn't have a movie theater or a shopping mall. We had the woods and some fish.
That sounds like a great way to grow up to me. When you were out there in the woods, of course, when it wasn't winter time, what kind of things did you do? Did you ever hunt, or did you camp? What did you do?
We did do some camping. I wasn't old enough to go hunting yet. I was allowed to have a BB gun. We used to go down, and we did have a town dump, and I used to go down and shoot some rats. That was about it. We rode four-wheelers and dirt bikes. I did do some fishing. Actually, I did a lot of fishing back then. That's about it.
Until the day when you had that encounter, had you experienced anything unexpected in the woods?
No, never had a problem. I mean, I've seen bears, and I've seen maybe one or two mountain lions here and there, some rattlesnakes, but nothing that really bothered me.
I know it's pretty eerie to think about, but I'll bet that wasn't the first time it had seen you. Maybe it was watching you for a while before it approached you that day. It's hard to say, we don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's how it was.
I don't know. I know you guys talk about how the woods get silent and stuff. I don't ever remember that ever happening. And I used to go out by myself too sometimes, so it's never bothered me.
Well, not everyone who has an encounter reports the woods going dead silent like that. That's the norm, but that's not always how it is. So, yeah, don't think that that's how it's got to be. When we had that pre-interview and you talked with me about that encounter the first time around, you had a pretty good amount of trouble talking about what happened to you that day. And once the listeners have a chance to listen to the nature of this encounter, I'm sure they'll totally understand. Sitting here tonight, is it going to be easier for you to talk about this, or do you think you might have every bit as much trouble tonight talking about it as you did that first time around?
I hope it'll be easier, but it still terrifies me. And I think that's the hardest part, because then I start seeing it in my mind's eye. If that makes any sense.
Oh, no, that makes perfect sense. All right, Brittany, please tell us about your encounter. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
All right, I'll do my best. I was at my babysitter's house, and this was after school when we got done with our schoolwork and stuff. So it's like pre-dusk. It's just before dusk that this happened. And we were outside, and if you're facing the house, to the right of the house, there's like an open yard, and then there's woods, and then the back of the house is like a swampy area, and then to the left there's the driveway, and then it drops down in a little bit to a creek, and then it goes into woods after that. I started out over on the right side because me, my brother, and my babysitter's oldest daughter was there, and we had collected all these acorns for a fall feast at the end of fall, this happened in the fall, and we were deciding where to put these acorns. And it started like in an argument because they could not pick a spot where to put it, and I knew, being the little one, that I'm not going to be heard, so forget this. I'm going to go do something else. And then I decided I'm going to go try to catch some crawdaddies. I'm sitting there thinking, how am I going to catch them? And I make my way around to the corner of the house to go across the front yard. And when I do go around the bend, I'm just completely entrenched, like kind of just looking down because it's open and just thinking about these crawdaddies. And I make my way across the front yard and over to the driveway, go across that, and then goes down a little hill. And that's when, across the creek, I seen the feet and I froze. And this creek, like, only 2 feet across and only a couple inches deep. It's not deep at all. And I just remember standing there, just looking at these feet, like, what the heck is that? And then I heard it start sniffing. That's when I got scared, because it was like big sniffing. And I'm just sitting there looking at these feet, and then my brain just starts kind of going, and I'm froze. I'm just dead froze. And my heart's going, and I start slowly going up its legs. And then I get to, I guess, their hands. They look like hands, but dog hands with claws, and I'm totally just freaked out at this point. I'm even starting to shake now. It still freaks me out. And I'm just looking at him. I'm like, in my brain, I'm trying to think, bear, dog, no, it's not a dog, it's not a bear. And I start going up, further up on its body. And this thing is just muscle. It's completely wrapped in muscle. And then I get to its head, and, I actually pee myself. I remember peeing myself because it just absolutely terrified me. And it's looking at me, I'm looking at it, looking at each other, I'm looking at it, right in the eyes, and it's horrible. I'm totally freaked out at this point. And my brain just can't wrap around with what the hell is this, is it a dog, is it a bear, it's a bear. My brain's trying to put it in bear. I know it's not a bear. And I'm just looking at it, and it's looking at me.
Take your time.
Yeah, I'm trying to be better than like the first time I told you.
You're doing great.
My heart gets going, and I start getting anxious.
Oh, sure it does.
So I just remember, I was looking at its eyes, and it was just like, at that young age, I could tell there was a thought behind it, I guess, and a way to say it. And I was completely freaked out at that point. And my brain just couldn't, I wasn't going anywhere. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. I couldn't talk. I couldn't do anything. And I'm sure I was crying, but I don't even remember that. I just remember looking at it. It was horrible. And then it did at that point its ears were up, and it did like a growling snap at me, and its ears went flat back, and its eyes completely changed to anger or pissed off, and I could tell that this was not good. And I'm still froze. I can't do anything. I'm just looking at it. I can see its teeth, and it's horrible. And then it went to lift its right arm, because it was going to touch my left. And it just started bringing it up slowly. It had no problem reaching across. Not at all. Not at all. It didn't have to move or anything. If it wanted to grab me right then and there, it definitely could have. Not a problem at all. I wouldn't have to move an inch. And it brought its hand up with its claws. And these claws are like, I guess, kind of like bear claws, but sharper, kind of like cat cross bear claws. It could definitely shred you. And it got to my arm, and was nearly there, and then it heard, and I heard my brother and Ashley start yelling. At the time, I thought maybe they were yelling over here, because I'm trying to yell for help or something, but my brain just won't let me. I'm trying to yell bear. It won't let me do that. But they were actually still fighting over the acorns. And when it heard them, its ears flicked forward, and then it spun, and it took off. It spun down on the floor and took off. And at that time, I remember watching it. I would go a couple paces, and then I passed out. That's the last thing I remember of it. The next thing I remember is waking up in the house with Janice over me with an ice pack. And I do remember at that point I'm bawling, trying to, I'm dog bear, bear dog, it's there. I'm just a mess trying to tell them, what I've seen. I remember being so shook up, she had to call my dad to come get us early. I just couldn't relax, couldn't chill out. I'll tell you what though, the biggest relief was when my dad came through the door. I was so happy to see him, it still kind of brings me to tears, because that's my dad, nothing's gonna hurt me with my dad's tears. I was never so happy to see him.
I'll bet you were happy to see him. When he came through that door, did you tell him right away what you had been through, or did you wait to tell him?
Oh no, I was a babbling brook trying to tell him what I'd seen. So I'm like, it's gonna get me, Dad. I was a babbling brook. And when he took me out, it was dark the time he got there. I remember when he was taking us out there, I would not walk out to the car. He had to carry me out, and I buried my head into his shoulder because I was so scared that it was going to be out there.
I don't blame you after what you had been through. You said it was within grabbing distance, but at its closest, how close was it to you?
I was nearly touching my arm, just right there. Right there. If it wanted to grab me, it could have, and I remember it lifting its pointer finger up a little bit, like it was getting ready to, touch me. Ooh, that still sends shivers down me thinking about that. It still shakes me up. I'm still shaking.
I'm sure you are shaking talking about something like that. I know it was within grabbing distance of you, but as far as its body went, how close was its body to yours? About 3 feet? 4 feet? They have long arms, so I'm not really sure on that.
Just 2 feet. It was just right at the edge of the creek. It wasn't in the creek, but it was right at the edge of that creek. And I was right at the other edge, because like I said, the driveway drops down a little bit to the hill, and it's just right there.
So its body was just 2 feet away from yours. Wow, that is too close. You compared its claws as being somewhat bear-like and also somewhat cat-like. If you had to make a comparison between a black bear's claws, the way they curve, and a grizzly's claws, they're not perfectly straight, but they have a little bit of a curve to them. Which kind of claw did its claws resemble?
More of the straight one. They were more pointed at the end. They weren't definitely curled like a cat. They were thick.
Okay, I see. Let's talk about its eyes. It sounds like you got a really good look at them. Please go into more detail on describing them for us.
They were like a golden yellow color, almost like a cat, but not as yellow. They were definitely a round pupil. They weren't split. And they were pretty big, and they definitely had a thought behind them.
What would you say was the most disturbing thing about this dog man?
But when I got to its head, the whole head, especially the eyes, totally freaked me out. The head was huge, like a bear. That's kind of like, I guess, where my brain puts the bear thing at.
Was its head disproportionately large for its body, or was it just a huge body and a head that basically was in proportion to that body?
No, it was just a big animal. Like, I'm 7 years old. I'm pretty short, so it loomed over me. It was just big. In general, just big.
I realize when you're 7, trying to estimate height, it's going to be really hard to do, but if you had to guess, how tall do you think this thing was?
Definitely bigger than my dad, I can tell you that. If I had to guess, my dad's a pretty big man. He's almost 6 foot, and it was definitely bigger than him.
Yeah, they do get a lot bigger than that. It seems like every time someone talks about having a close-up and personal encounter with a dog man, you have some critics who always say, well, if you were that close to a dog man, why didn't you take a photo of the dog man? Even if you would have been 30 or 40 and had a camera hanging from your neck, or say a cell phone in your back pocket, do you see there being any way you could have taken a photo of that dog man that day?
Oh no, I was so scared I couldn't even yell for help. I couldn't run. I couldn't move. The only thing I could do was move my eyes. That was it. That was it. No way was I going to be doing anything else.
Well, that only makes sense. Yeah, it's so easy to say, oh, I would have taken a photo, but if you're in that position, the same position you were in that day, yeah, it's a totally different thing. It's a lot harder to do it than what some of these people would give you credit for. You said its mood changed in a snap. Did you do anything that might have caused that change?
Maybe just looking at it in the eyes and its head. I don't know. I thought about that, but I don't know. I can't answer that because I can't think for that thing.
Well, let's face the facts here. You are 7 years old. You're placed in a situation that most people who are 40 or 50 couldn't have handled very well at all. You handled the situation the best way you knew how. You did a really good job of dealing with that very stressful situation. So I hope you don't beat yourself up over anything that you did during that experience. What's been the hardest thing about that experience to get over?
The wood. I never looked at him the same. I was never able to go back out, especially by myself. When I did go back out, I was always on like a fool or a horse. I could never just go back out and play in the woods. That never happened again.
Do you see it as an advantage that you know they're out there?
Well, you know what they say, ignorance is bliss. I wish I'd never seen it. I missed a lot of things with my family because I was too scared. Like hunting is a big thing in our family. I couldn't do it. I couldn't go out. Couldn't do it. Me and my dad used to take fishing trips for the first opening of trout. I had to wait until the sun came up, and then I always had to go with a group of people, and we could never do our early morning at 4 a.m. before the dawn cracked, and I couldn't do it anymore.
You had a very traumatic experience at a very young age. The fact that you can operate and live your life as effectively as you can and do, that says volumes about you. You deserve a lot of credit for being able to handle that situation and move on and deal with life as well as you have. So please don't beat yourself up about anything that maybe you can't do or can't do as easily as you would have been able to do it if you hadn't have had that encounter. Please don't lose sight of that fact. If I understand you correctly, did you say it was reaching out for you to grab you when your brother called out and made that sound that ultimately drove it away?
I don't know if it was going to grab me or just touch me. I don't know because it didn't complete the action. but it was definitely reaching out. I tried to put in my mind that it was just going to touch me instead of grab me, because that absolutely terrifies me. I've had nightmares about that scenario finishing out that way. I really don't know.
Yeah, it's so easy to run things like what happened to you over and over and over again in your head until you almost drive yourself crazy. Am I to understand that it stopped reaching out for you because of that sound your brother made, or did it stop the motion of reaching out for you right before your brother called out and drove it away?
No, it was right when my brother and Ashley started getting loud. That's when it stopped and its ears flicked forward.
Okay, I see. I just wanted to get that straight. What was its leg structure like? Were the legs more hominid-like in structure, like a Sasquatch or a human, or were they more acanid-like, like a dog, horse, or a cat?
A dog. Definitely a dog.
When all this was going on, did you ever smell any strange scents?
No, I don't remember sounds. No, I just remember it sounds. Nothing else around me until my brother and Ashley started getting loud. I was just so frozen and like mind warped that was it. That was the only thing my mind was focused on. And prior to walking up, I don't remember any sounds. I don't remember anything out of the ordinary. I was just so entrenched into my crawdaddy and thing that I didn't hear or think of, nothing came to my mind I can think of.
Something I hope you don't lose sight of is the fact that there are so many 7-year-olds out there, Brittany, who if they had had this experience, they would have spent the rest of their lives drinking food through a straw. They would not have been able to handle that experience nearly as well as you have. I know it's really hard to deal with, it's so hard to get over, but you deserve so much credit for being able to handle that as well as you have. It might not seem like you're dealing with this all that well at times, but trust me, you are definitely dealing with this very well.
Well, I think a lot of it was my dad, too. He wasn't like everyone else trying to say, well, you seen a bear, or you just seen a dog squatting, or, you bumped your head and fell, and, that's just what you dreamed in your head. He just always sat and listened to me. He never really argued with me, and he just never really said anything about it either. Maybe that was it. I'm not quite sure.
Well, sometimes the best thing a person listening to you talk about an experience like that can do is just to sit there and listen. It sounds like that's what your dad did, and I'm so glad he did that. I'm so glad he didn't make fun of you or shoot down the fact that you had that encounter. That helped you a lot, maybe a lot more than what you even realize.
I think so. Like, I never told him details like I told you. I just kept trying to tell him I seen a bear dog. That's not all I could say at that time.
When you're 7, it's awfully hard to express yourself, so that's to be expected. So then I'm clear on this whole reaching out for you thing. You said that it had its index finger, its pointy finger. It was out, almost like it was pointing at you, but what were the other fingers doing? Were the other fingers against its palm, or were they somewhat open, as if it was going to grab you? What were they doing?
They were open, and he just kind of lifted his finger. They were never clenched or anything. They just kind of lifted up his finger.
Has there ever been a point where you were able to go out and enjoy the woods in somewhat of a carefree fashion, whether you're with a group of people, or is it a situation where no matter what you do, you still have a hard time enjoying yourself out there?
Well, I still have a hard time. I'm very, cautious. I pay attention. I get uneasy, even when I guess I shouldn't be. Like, say we're in an open lake area, but there's lights on around, like, corners and the outskirts of it, I still get uneasy. I still keep my eye on the wood line.
That's what most people who had an experience like that would do, so that's totally normal. Do you have any idea why that dogman was there that day in the first place?
No, the only thing, I've thought about that a lot. The only thing I can come up with, maybe it was getting a drink, maybe it was going up for the crawdaddy too. I don't know. I don't know any reason why it would be there. I mean, Janice got a meticulous house, and the trash was only taken out in the morning because of the bears. And that was taken all the way down the driveway, down into the dirt road where it went out to the main road. so that wasn't even there. And it had to have known we were there, because it's not like we're quiet, and we're out there every day. So it had to have known we were there. I don't know why it was there.
Well, there's no way to think for these things. They do what they do for whatever reasons they might have. You could drive yourself crazy trying to figure them out, because it sure doesn't seem like there's any rhyme nor reason. Considering the fact that we're talking about central PA here, is that area where this happened, is it almost overrun with black bears and deer, or what's the situation like there?
Oh, there's tons and tons of deer. Tons of deer. There's quite a bit of good of bear out there. I remember, we had a bird feeder, and almost every night we get out there, and there I come with a pot and pan and smacking it to scare them off. So they're definitely out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of room for them to roam out there. Did you ever get the impression that dog man might not have been alone that day?
I don't know, because I was so focused on that one. I can't answer that. I don't know. I thought about that too after I heard some other stories about him running in packs, but I was so focused on that one, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's one of those situations where it's just so hard to know. Did you ever feel like it might have come back around after you had that encounter?
That one is a maybe, because, like I said, it was a school night. Definitely wasn't a Friday, and we had to go back to Genesis the next morning for school. My dad would drop us off. And I remember her saying that we weren't allowed outside for a while because there was a crazy naked man running around, and it wasn't safe for us to be outside. And at the time, I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird, but I was happy because I didn't want to go outside, but I didn't really think much of it. Now I'm like, I wonder if maybe she's seen something, or maybe went back out and seen the tracks, and it was kind of soft, like right at the creek edge. But it was just weird because she's never said anything like that. So I can't answer for her. I never asked her. I don't see them anymore. So maybe, I don't know.
Well, if the dirt was that soft next to the creek, I wouldn't be surprised if she did go out there to investigate and did see some prints. It's kind of strange to explain it away as it being a naked man outside running around, but I guess that still gets the job done because, like you said, you didn't have to go out there. Thank goodness.
Yeah, I wasn't going to complain.
I don't blame you. Do you live in the same area now where you had that encounter?
No, my dad still lives there. A lot of my family does, so I still visit.
If your family still lives in that area, what kind of concerns do you have for them and their safety?
Well, my dad he's a very active hunter, so is my Uncle Mike and stuff, and I always tell him, just be very cautious. I know I'm not going to change their minds. They're not going to stop. Just be cautious, and I tell them, don't go out by yourself, and they've always been very good about that. We're very safety-oriented, and they always have walkie-talkie, and everybody always goes out prepared. There's not much more I could say to them other than, be aware.
Yeah, there's something about the idea of heading out before dawn to a tree stand in an area where you know these things are. You can only look in one direction at a time. And then once you get to the stand and you're sitting there all day, you've got your back to about 180 degrees of wood all that time, where something like that could sneak up on you. The idea of that is just so hard to get over. It's so creepy. It makes you wonder how many deer hunters have been out there in a stand and had one of these things right behind them, but they never knew. They were totally oblivious.
I hope they never know. Like I said, ignorance is bliss, and maybe they'll just keep going on their merry way, and my dad will keep going on his.
I'm with you. I hope they never do find out about these things. When you're watching TV or you hear a friend tell their kids that monsters aren't real, does this send a shiver up your spine, knowing that they are in fact real? What's your take on that?
Now, I don't think it's right to go around scaring little kids. That's just not something we should do, but I do believe we should teach them to be aware of their surroundings and to never just wander off without a current world like I did. That's definitely not a good thing to do.
Oh, I'd say. Let's talk a little more about your occupation. You're in an unusual circumstance here because of the fact that you know dogmen are real, and because of your job, you're required to be in some very remote locations at night. I can't imagine what that must be like for you. what kinds of steps, you talked about some of the steps you've taken to try and help protect yourself because of the work you do, but what other kinds of things have you done to try and protect yourself when you're out there in really lonely places at night?
Oh, my first thing is in my trailer, I equipped it with special LED lights, which are very luminous, and those are running constantly when I'm stopped and I'm unloading my freight, and they illuminate around my truck at least 10 feet out. And then I've also put spotlights on my truck, which are, they're like deer spotlights. They go out pretty darn far. And then my engine, I specifically got a special engine made because it's loud. It's very loud when it's running.
There's something important I need to share with you, and I also need to share with anyone who's listening who might have an encounter of their own. For some reason, there's this canard that as long as you have an area brightly lit, that's basically a guarantee that a dogman won't come into that area. That's not true, so please don't make the mistake of thinking that just because you have bright lights on an area, that makes it so they won't necessarily come into that area, because that's just not true.
Well, I kind of figured that. Like I said, it's a deterrent, and hopefully a deterrent to kind of turn away a situation that could arise.
Oh, I agree, yeah. It's a really good idea to have bright lights like that. Yeah, it can only help, so that's a good idea, like I said. Do you have any closing comments you'd like to share with the listeners?
I'm just hoping that maybe my coming out with it to maybe help someone else talk about it and share with it. Or maybe someone that doesn't believe with it, maybe they'll believe and be more cautious. Because they're definitely designed as a hunting animal. They're definitely not, eating leaves. And I do believe that they could go to hurting or kill someone. And I would hopefully deter someone or a situation from coming out. That's what happens.
Thank you so much for coming on tonight, Brittany, and telling us about that experience. I really do appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate what you do. I never knew what these were until I stumbled across your show, and I'm like, oh my God, that's what I see. I'm not the only person out here. I'm not crazy. You're a big help.
You're definitely not crazy. And I'm so glad to hear about how the show has helped you. That's what this is all about. Well, thanks again so much for coming on, Brittany. Have a great night.
You have a good night, too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Hi everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff and I'll be your host for the show. If you've had an encounter of your own and would like to speak with me whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. Tonight's guest is Gage. Gage, welcome to the show.
Good to be here, Jake.
Oh, it's great having you. Gage, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
Well, I've grown up in Alabama my whole life. I'm a heating and air technician, and that's where I go out and service air conditioners during the summer, and especially during the winter. That's where there's a lot of people need heat during the winter, so I go out. That's my big time, besides summer when it gets real hot. I'm an avid hunter. I've grown up in the woods. I've fished all my life. Every single member of my family has either been a farmer or done something in the technical field. My father was a welder. My uncle is an electrician, and I'm a HVAC technician, as I said. And I've been doing that for about 2-3 years now. Well, it'll actually be 3 years come February. And I've just always enjoyed being there in the woods and fishing, just anything somebody growing up in Alabama would enjoy doing.
When you were growing up, what were your thoughts on things that go bump in the night like Sasquatch? Did you believe in them?
Well, Vic, I never really gave it much thought because the way I looked at it at the time was, well, it's just a bunch of Hollywood monster stuff. You know, I grew up watching Dracula and Frankenstein and things like that. I never gave it much thought, really. Honestly, I didn't believe in all that.
Well, that wouldn't make you any different from a lot of people. When you had your dogman encounter, did it solidify the idea that Sasquatch are also real for you?
Yes, sir, it did, because after I got to thinking about it, I thought, well, if this thing exists, why can't a Bigfoot? Because this thing was flesh and blood, so why can't the Sasquatch Bigfoot people are seeing be real as well?
That makes good sense. If you think about it, if dogmen are real, what else is real? When was the first time you heard the appellation dogman?
I actually had heard about it growing up. I just heard, like, basically campfire stories, you know, things the elder people would tell to scare children and stuff. So, you know, hear that I was a Boy Scout at one time, and they tell us stories about a dog man, you know, to scare us. And that's really all I can remember ever being told and hearing about it. Never heard anything on the news or anything. I just never really heard anything about it besides a few times.
Well, it goes without saying most people don't because it doesn't exactly get thrown around the way Sasquatch or Bigfoot does. How much research did you put into dogmen after having your encounter?
I'd say I put a great deal into it trying to understand what I saw and what happened to me. I started looking things up, Googling things. I actually bought a book. I can't remember. It's actually on a shelf here in my bedroom, but I'm in the living room right now. But I want to say the name of the book was Lycanthropy, but it was an older book, and I can't remember the author's name to save my life. But I read that book, and I read some other books, and like I said, did my own research. And I was just trying to figure out, you know, what I saw, what had happened to me to help me cope with this.
Well, that wouldn't make you any different than most eyewitnesses. After you have an experience like that, most people do try and get as much info on dogmen as they can, so that's pretty much to be expected. You think your dad might have had a dogman encounter of his own. Why do you think that?
Well, I say that because when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I was at my granddaddy's farm. Me and him were actually in the kitchen. We were just talking and everything. Best I remember, we was actually talking about frog gigging. And I remember my daddy came into the house because he was off that particular day and he wanted to go fishing because he hadn't been fishing in a while and he just loved to fish. And he came in the house all real scared and he said, "Daddy, I want to talk to you alone." He said, "Something happened." He said, "I just got to talk to you." So him and my daddy went to his room. They didn't have the door quite closed. So me being a little bit nosy thing that I was, I went and tried to eavesdrop on them and they ended up catching me and they shooed me away and shut the door and went farther into the room where I couldn't hear them. And I went and talked to my granddaddy today, and I asked him about why my dad came inside the house scared that day. And he told me, he said, "Son," he said, "your daddy had an experience similar to what you had." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yes, son, he did." I said, "Well, what happened?" He said, "Well, your daddy was out on the boat and he said he was fishing on the riverbank. I said, well, what part of the river was he on? And he said he was down there right in the south side. He said, do you know that part we went fishing that time when you were about 12 years old and we nearly run up on that log that was in the water? I said, yes, sir. And he said, well, it was right in that area. And he said, your daddy was fishing. He heard something in the bush, and he said that he really didn't think nothing about it. It was probably a deer until this thing walked out of the tree line and was looking at him. And I asked my granddad, I said, well, what was it? He said, well, son, it was a booger. I said, a booger? He said, yes, son. He said, it was a booger. And I asked him, I said, well, Papa, what did it look like? And he said, well, he said, your daddy said that it was black, and it was real tall. He said, it was bigger than him. He said, it was between 7 to 8 feet tall from what I remember your daddy telling me. And he said that your daddy could smell it from where he was at, and he said it just had this real bad smell. He said it kind of smelled like trash that had been sitting out in the heat. And he said that it just looked at him and it watched him. And your daddy told me that he had forgot his gun in his truck, and he said he was scared to death to even come back on the bank. He said even though he was going to have to go down the river, he was still going to have to get the boat out of the water. And your daddy said that when he finally did make it down river, that he thought this thing had actually followed him down the river along the bank just where he couldn't see it. And he said when he got there where his truck was in the trailer, he said that he just kind of stayed out there for another 15 to 20 minutes. And when he was satisfied that there wasn't nothing out there, he got his boat up on the trailer. And he said he got out of there, and about that time, he came flying back home, and the rest.
I'm surprised your dad held that info from you for all those years.
I am too. Of course, at the time that he said what he did to me, I was a little bit older, but I don't think he quite wanted to share his encounter with me because I don't believe he just wanted to scare me with it.
A dad's first responsibility is to protect his son or his daughter, so I guess he saw that as just shaking you up unnecessarily. When you were young, you used to be afraid of werewolves. One day your dad had something strange to say about that. What did he tell you?
Well, the reason I was scared of werewolves is because me and my daddy had watched this movie when I was younger, and the name of the movie is Silver Bullet, and it's actually based on a book by Stephen King called Cycle of the Werewolf. And what scared me was when the werewolf comes up out of the bottom of this shack and gets this man and kills him. And I couldn't watch that movie from then on. I couldn't even see a picture of anything with a werewolf. And as I got older, there was movies that came out and had a werewolf in it, and I just point out, because I eventually got over my fear, and because I told myself, well, things ain't real, so it's just Hollywood movie magic, so I'm scared for nothing. I'd point out things like, that makeup, that he has on, it's, starting to run, or things like that, just Hollywood mistakes. And my daddy told me one day, he said, son, he said, you ain't don't think it's too funny when you run up on something like that. And he said, you come nose to nose with it and toe to toe. He said, you're not don't think it's funny.
Yeah, that's pretty eerie. I'm sure he was thinking back on his encounter when he was telling you that. And you talk about that movie, Silver Bullet. I never will forget seeing that when I was younger, and when that werewolf jumped out through the floor in that greenhouse and grabbed that guy, I almost had a self-deprecating moment on the spot. That really shook me up too. Growing up, how much time did you spend in the woods, and what did you do out there?
Well, just being another kid growing up in Alabama, I spent my time in the woods playing, running around, and I went with my daddy and uncle hunting, my granddaddy hunting, fished, and to get to one of our particular fishing holes, you had to walk in on foot. You couldn't go in on ATV or truck or anything. You had to go in on foot, and to this day, in my mind, that's the best fishing hole here around. I don't frequent it as much as what I used to, but I've went a couple times. Me and a bunch of my friends that I've grown up with will go sometimes. But I just grew up in the woods playing, hunting, fishing, like I said, just doing everyday Alabama boy thing, I guess you'd say.
Well, that sounds like a great way to grow up to me. Have you ever gone back to the place where you had your encounter?
I went once. It was not too long after deer season had ended in, I believe it was January. My uncle went with me and my girlfriend went with me. We went back, and when my uncle called me the morning that we went, he asked me would I go back and show him where it happened. I told him, I said, no way. I said, there is no way that I'm going to go back. I told him, I said, Uncle, I said, there's just no way. I said, you can't pay me to go. Well, my girlfriend, who I'm still happily with today, she encouraged me to go. She actually convinced me, coerced me into going. And we got there in the truck, and at first I didn't even want to get out of the truck. I just remember telling my uncle, yep, this is the place, this is it. Yeah, this is it, Uncle. I said, can we just get out of here? My uncle wanted me to get out, show him a little bit more. I told him, I said, I'm not getting out of the truck. And my girlfriend again, she got me out of the truck, and she has a way of calming me down, and she did it ever since we was in high school. And what she does, I played football, and she was in the band, and we were up to win the state championship football game. Would have been state champions. And we had the game won, but the opposing team came back, made a touchdown, and they kicked the field goal, and they beat us by a field goal. And obviously we're in shoulder pads go down, just about all the way down your back. And she just took her hand, she just rubbed the back of my back on the lower part. And that's just what she's always done to help calm me down. It did a great deal, and I was able to get out. And we stayed for maybe 30 minutes. But after that, I told my uncle, I said, I just got to go. I can't be here no more.
We spent a good amount of time talking about your girlfriend in the pre-interview, and she definitely sounds like a keeper. I'm so impressed by the way she supported you through all this.
Oh, Vic, I'm truly blessed to have her in my life, and she's the light of my world, and honestly, I don't know what I'd do without her. I believe I'd have honestly went crazy. The men from the funny farm and the white lab coats would have came and got me probably.
Oh, I can understand that, especially considering the nature of that encounter you had. All right, Gage, please tell us about this encounter you had. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Okay, well, my encounter, initially I told you it happened on the 3rd of November of 2015. Looking back now, it actually happened on the 4th. Now that I go back and think about it, it happened November 4th of 2015. So it's been right at a year. And I got out of school because I was going back to school, and I still am, to get a different degree so I can actually teach heating and air at the local high school, or teach at the community college somewhere, or after I start my own business up, I can teach some of the younger guys some things that I've learned, some just useful hints and everything, and just teach them a little bit different what you get taught in college about doing it, because the way they're going to teach the way the book does, but experience trumps a book every time. And I got out of school about 3 o'clock. Actually, I think it was about 3:02 when I got out. And that morning, before I went to school, I had called my uncle, who owns a farm, and I asked him would it be all right if I went hunting on his land. Now, his farm is between 82 to 85 acres, but 4 miles down the road from his farm, he owns another piece of property that came with the farm. Initially, it had one green field already on it, but my uncle and my granddaddy and me had actually went and cleared out 3 other places for green fields, so now there are 4. My uncle's an electrician, and he has 2 trucks. He has a 97 Ford F-350, and the other one is a Chevy S10. I don't remember the year exactly on it, but I want to say it's between a 99 and a 2004 model, I want to say. And I told him, I said, if you'll leave me the S10 and you take the F-350 to work with you when you go out on your call today, I said, I'll just take the S10, I'll hook the little trailer up to it, and I'll put the ATV 4-wheeler up on there. And I said, I'll just use that. And he told me, he said, well, son, that'll be fine. When I got to his house that afternoon, I got to his house about between 4:20, 4:30. And I noticed that the F-350 was there, but the S10 was not. Well, I went and knocked on his door and rang his doorbell. Nobody ever came, so I took my key and unlocked it, and he had left me a note on the kitchen table. And he told me to go ahead and just take the F-350. It'd be better for the trail and the road going up to a piece of property that was 4 miles away, going up on the dirt road to the green fields. Well, I went ahead, hooked up the trailer, and put the four-wheeler on there out of the barn, and I just made my way on down there. Now, the piece of property that's 4 miles from his farm is actually adjacent to the main road. It actually comes off the main road. And the main road at one time was just a two-way road going towards the town. And there was another one on the other side, another two-lane going down the other way. And I'd say about 20 yards from what I remember when we dug the poles, there is a cable gate. Now, I'm not talking about a cable gate like you buy from Lowe's or somewhere. What we did, we took a 10-foot steel pipe, cut it in half, took post hole diggers, and dug, I believe, either 4 feet into the ground or 5 feet, and poured concrete in there and set the poles down in there. Well, and the local power company, Alabama Power, was getting rid of some telephone cable, and we got that. We fashioned it to make a kind of like a block, kind of like a blockade, I guess you'd say. Well, just a cable, and fix where it can be undone, laid down, put back up. Now, we did that because if anybody tries to go up there in a car and don't stop, number one, it's going to tear your car all to pieces. Number three, it might just flip your car because these poles ain't going nowhere. When I got to the poles and everything, I had just enough room to get the truck up there with the trailer just where it's off the main road. And this road is dirt. And it goes from being pretty wide up there going pretty narrow. And the F-350 is a pretty big truck, both long ways and in width. And one thing I forgot to mention, that this F-350 is not a crew cab. It is actually an extended cab. And it's a 4-speed straight shift manual. And so I got out, unlocked the gate, went up the dirt road. I didn't lock it back. And my uncle and me had actually cut into the woodline, a place where you could turn the truck around. That way, if there was an emergency, you didn't have to deal with backing up and trying to back up with a trailer, because I don't know if anyone listening has ever tried to back up with a trailer, but it's one of the hardest things to do because you have that ball pivot on the back, and it's just one of the hardest things to do. So it's just easier to turn around. That way you can zip and go. Well, when I turned the truck around, unloaded the four-wheeler, then I just made my way to my deer stand. On my deer stand, I was hunting on Greenfield number 3. And it was one of the ones we had actually done, that we'd made. And the deer stand in particular has a ladder on it that you could climb. Well, I got up in my deer stand. One thing I forgot to mention was that this was during bow season. And I climbed my stand. I was sitting there. It was pretty warm because in Alabama, when it gets around the last part of October, the first part of November, it's pretty warm during the day. But when it gets night and in the morning, it's real cold. It can drop to about 50, 55, 60 degrees. It's just real cold in the mornings and at night. So I was just wearing a long sleeve camouflage shirt, pants, and boots. I had my face painted up, and I was wearing my ball cap. And, of course, I was wearing hunter orange, just in case there was anybody walking through who wouldn't try to kill me. They'll think I was some kind of animal or something. That has happened before to people all over the United States getting shot by hunters because the hunter that got shot was not wearing orange. Well, honestly, I didn't think I was going to get anything. About 5:30, or a little before 5:30, this doe that weighed between, if I had to guess, 75 to 80 pounds, maybe a little over 80 pounds, walked out to the green field. Well, I drew my bow back and I hit her, and I saw at first I missed her because she kind of squatted down, and then she got up and ran, but I could tell I hit her because she was limping. The arrow had actually almost went completely through. Well, I climbed down and I followed the blood trail, and I actually found her, but where she went down this ravine, and this ravine actually has rocks on it, and it's one of the hardest things to get down, and it's even hard to get back up. And the thing about it is, around it is the thickest woods that you've ever saw, and you can't get a four-wheeler in there. I've tried before, I nearly tore it up. between it flexing on the rocks and just going over logs and everything. And there's holes, and I didn't want to take a chance. I took that chance for it, and it tore a four-wheeler rope. So what I did, got my rope out, got down there, took my hair out, put it back in my quiver, got my rope, and I proceeded to drag my doe out. Well, I drug it back up these rocks. Of course, it took me longer to drag the doe up the rocks than it did me going down them the first time, because I didn't have all that extra weight on me. Well, when I got to the top, I sat down next to my doe, and the sun was almost completely down. It was almost dark. Well, the woods were dark, but the sky was not completely dark yet. The sky was kind of a purplish, orangish color. It was real pretty. And I remember actually saying, looking over at the deer, and saying, "You gave me one of a challenge, getting you up here." I just kind of laughed about it, kind of chuckled to myself. And I sat there a few more minutes, and of course it got darker, and I proceeded to drag it back to the four-wheeler, strapped her onto the front of it, and I made my way back to the truck. Well, when I pulled up alongside the truck, I got off, cut the four-wheeler off, and dropped the tailgate, put the deer in the back. I had the tarp with me, but I hadn't yet put the tarp on my deer. And I went and loaded my four-wheeler up, and when I got that loaded up, I got inside the truck. Well, on the truck, when you open up the cab door, any of the doors on there, the light will come on, but when you close it, it'll go back off. So I turned my headlamp on that I had, and I went rummaging through the glove box to find the tags, because I was going to go ahead and fill the tag out. The reason for that being is in Alabama, if you get caught with a deer that is not tagged and you have not written one out and it's not on the deer, or at least have one written out and it be on your person, you will be fined, and the game board will actually confiscate the deer. Well, I didn't want that to happen. I didn't want my deer taken, so I went ahead and filled it out. And it was getting cold. If I had to guess, it was about 64, 66 degrees. I mean, that ain't too cold for being in Alabama, but when you go from being hot all summer, that gets pretty cold. So I cranked the truck. It was in first gear and had the parking brake on, which is a really important detail. And I was filling out the tag and everything. When I got done, I turned the radio on just for a minute, because I had brought with me some dinner. I had brought me a ham and turkey sandwich with lettuce and tomato, and I put a few slices of bacon on there, and I brought me a bag of chips and water. And I was eating, and it was real dark now, and of course the running lights on the truck were on, but you couldn't see nothing in front of it, because, like I said, it's just running lights that don't shoot very far in the dark. And well, on the passenger side, I can't say, Vic, whether it was right next to the cab. I know for a fact it didn't come from the front of the cab, but it was either right there at the back of the cab or towards the middle of the truck. I felt something very light, Vic, and I wouldn't have actually noticed it had I not been paying attention. And like I said, I had the radio on, but it was real low, and I could hear everything going around me just about. I was actually listening to a sports radio station talking about Alabama and Auburn football down here in Alabama. That's a big thing. The SEC teams, kind of like a religion for people around here. You watch your favorite team on Saturday, and you pull for them, you hoop, you holler, and all that good stuff comes football. And I was listening to that. Like I said, I felt that. I got thinking about it. I just kind of cut my eyes over in front of me, and I noticed that some winds were shaking. Well, not necessarily shaking, just kind of gently blowing with the wind. I just chalked it up as the wind blowing, because if the wind blows hard enough and you're in a stationary vehicle, you can actually kind of feel it shake a vehicle. And I just chalked it up as being the wind. Well, about that time when I thought that, I was nearly done with my sandwich too. I felt the truck shake, dip in the back, and then it leveled out. When I say it leveled out, the back of the truck sits a few inches higher than the front for a reason. It sits higher in the back than it does from the front, because when you put a load in the back of the truck, it levels it out. That way nothing slides. Well, this thing leveled out, and my first thought was, what in the was that? And I thought, and when I say I thought, I don't mean I sat there and I seriously thought about this like a math equation. I mean, it was like a split second. And the first thing that came to mind was maybe a limb fell out of the tree, and I thought about it, and I thought, well, if it was a limb, it would have just shook the truck and it wouldn't have leveled it out. So my uncle on the back of his truck has a marine light, or spotlight. It's a marine light, as I call it, like you put on a boat. And it is angled at the truck bed. And inside there's a toggle switch, so I just flipped the toggle switch. And thick in back of my uncle's truck, I saw the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life. My first thought was it was a brown bear. And I got thinking about, like I said again, split second. Thought to myself, well, it's a brown bear. Well, no, brown bears ain't around here. Well, it could be a honey bear. No, it ain't no honey black bear, because they ain't that big. And besides, they're black. Well, I couldn't see the head, but I could see the body. And the body was like this kind of a mix between a reddish brown color is what I'd call it. It had real long arms and a hand, I can't necessarily call it a hand big. It was kind of a cross between a paw and a hand. The best thing I can kind of relate to is kind of like a raccoon hand. The way they look. Like I said, I didn't see the face. I could just see the body. And this thing was every bit of about 7 foot, in between 600 to 700, maybe even 800 pounds big. I don't know. I mean, it would have been between that ballpark range, 600 to 800 pounds, to level that truck out in the back. And I actually believe it may have weighed it down more in the back than it should have, the way it did. Well, I'd already cut my headlamp off, and I was even in the dark. I forgot to mention that. And I cut, like I said, the marine light off. And my first thought was, man, am I really seeing this? I want to give a full disclaimer here and now. I was not drinking. I don't do any kind of mind-altering drugs at all. I'm completely against that. I will admit, I like to have a beer with my buddies every now and then, but I don't drink while I'm hunting. Like I said, I don't do mind-altering drugs. And my first thought was, did I see that? And I thought, well, maybe, again, split second thinking, did I really just see that? And, you know, it could just be my mind playing tricks on me. I'm tired, so I cut the marine light back on. It had lowered its head, and it wasn't quite towards the back glass of the back windshield. It wasn't quite there yet. It was still in the back of the truck, and it had, like I said, one hand on the deer, except it was looking into the back of the truck. Well, its head reminded me of a German Shepherd. I actually have one, and his name is Riley. Beautiful dog. And the ears on this thing remind me of my dog's ears. And the whole facial feature reminded me of a German Shepherd. And I actually thought, that's a big dog. Well, I got to looking at it. When I saw it, I don't mean that I turned around. I saw this through the rearview mirror. That's why I didn't see the head at first. If I had turned around, I'm sure I would have saw everything. I saw the head, had a long-eared muzzle, and it was just looking back at the light. I think it may have actually startled it that it came back on. Then you could have just stunned it, or I might even temporarily blind. It's like when you're in the dark and somebody just comes up and cuts a light on, and, you know, it kind of blinds you for a second. I think that might have been what actually happened. I think I actually did to it twice. Well, I cut the marine light back off. So at this time, I am trying to cope with what I'm seeing. So I cut my headlamp back on, and I turned around, and I actually thought for a second that I could have been dreaming. So I just pinched myself. Well, it hurt, so I know I wasn't dreaming. I turned around, and Vic, I hit this thing dead in the face with my headlamp because it had put its face almost directly against the back windshield back glass of my uncle's truck. And I'll say this about my uncle's truck. The seats in it sit pretty high, and I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3", 6'3 and a half. And I'm pretty muscular from playing football and baseball and track, and I still work out. I mean, I'm a pretty big guy. But the way I was sitting in the driver's seat, I was not laying down. The seat was straight up like I would be driving. I was kind of slumped down too, so the top of my head had not been above the seat. So I don't know when I flipped the marine light on that first time, so I cut it back off, whether it was trying to see me in there or not. And I cut it back on. It still not got quite to the back glass yet, but I noticed that it kind of moved up. I could see it move, and I cut it back off, like I said. And I was trying to cope with what I was seeing. Well, I turned around, and Vic, when I turned around, I caught this thing dead in the face with my headlamp. And when I did, the pupil dilated. And almost simultaneously, when I caught it in the face and the pupil was dilated, its breath just fogged up the back glass, back windshield of my uncle's truck. Well, one thing that really stood out to me was its eyes. And the best compliment I could give this thing would be its eye color. If I had to describe its eyes, it would be a mix between a hazel and a brown color. Had it not been on this thing, I'd tell you it was the prettiest eyes I've ever saw. But, again, I was going through at the time living. But, again, it had all admit it. And another thing I noticed on the muzzle, looked like it had a scar, like it might have been in a fight with something, or I don't know, just looked like scars going down the side. And the nose on this thing reminded me just like my German Shepherd, like a dog nose. And I could see its teeth. It was showing me its teeth. And one thing my German Shepherd would do when he's hungry, he'll kind of lick his chops. This thing did not do that. It just showed me its teeth. Well, this whole encounter, while it was in the back of the truck, probably took no more than maybe 3 minutes or 5 minutes tops. I dare say 5 minutes, because that'd be the lengthiest it could have been. I honestly believe it was about 3 minutes. Well, at the time, I was not thinking straight shift manual. I was thinking, get the hell out of here. Well, I just pressed the gas on the truck, and of course it revved the engine. When I did that, right as it idled back down, I'm not sure whether it was the engine or whether it was the thing in the back of the truck. But it sounded kind of like something guttural, kind of like a growl, I guess you'd say. And like I said, I'm not going to swear to it. That it came from the thing in the back of the truck. And I'm not going to say there's the truck itself, but I did hear something. And when I realized what I had done, I immediately took the parking brake off, and I started going. Well, I prematurely put the truck in the second gear, and I'm thankful I did not stall the truck. I believe it was the grace of God that I did not stall the truck. Anyways, I prematurely put the truck in the second gear. And when I did, the truck bucked. When the truck bucked, the thing fell down in the back of the truck and actually rolled off the back of the tailgate, because I did not put the tailgate back up. It was still down. Well, I went as fast as I could down the road. Well, it was actually a trail from where I was at first, from the trail down the road. Well, like I said, the main road is adjacent to the dirt road where the gate is, and I knew for a fact that I could not go down this road as fast as I could and make that turn, because I knew if I tried to turn, the trailer in the back would start to turn, and I knew I'd flip, and I knew if I flip, one of two things was going to happen. Either I'm going to be killed in a car wreck, or I'm going to live, and this thing is going to come down there with me, and I'm going to have to deal with it. And I knew it was probably going to kill me. And another thing I forgot to mention, Vic, was that at the time, I was carrying a pistol with me. I always carry a pistol wherever I go. And my pistol is a Timber 1911 45 caliber. And this whole entire time, I never once thought about using my gun. Not at all. I did not. So, put the truck in neutral. And I started to slow down. And in my rearview mirror, I looked. And I cut the marine light back on. And when I did, it illuminated the back. Plus the trailer lights were on. And I could see this thing running on all fours. And I mean, at the time, I was trying to haul going down the road. Let me tell you something. This thing was hauling after me. I mean, it wanted the deer, or it wanted me one. I mean, it was like a dog chasing a car. That's about like what it was. It was hauling. Well, I made the turn. I didn't even bother getting out, trying to lock the gate. I was not going to do that. There was just no way, because one, it wouldn't even stop for me to lock the gate, and it probably wouldn't even phase it. It probably would just jumped over the gate. Well, I got back up to speed. When people that drive straight shifts, manuals, know that when you go from neutral and you're rolling, you have to get your RPMs back up, be able to shift into any gear. And Vic, I got into second gear, and this thing, I don't know if you've ever seen, or anybody in the audience has ever watched a sprinter run track. But when they run track, they start out real low. And it's a real smooth motion. It's real neat to watch. It'd go on YouTube and look it up if any of y'all hadn't seen it. But all in one motion, they come from being real low on all fours on a track. And they come up real smooth like. And what that does, it actually reduces wind pull on your drag. And you can actually cut through the wind better and run faster at the get-go. Now that's what this thing did. Now, I was in second gear. And I was not paying attention to how fast I was going. I was directly looking at my RPMs. And this thing had caught up to me, and it was about at the middle of the truck bed on the driver's side. Like I said, this is a 2-lane road, and nobody was on this road at the time, because nobody really goes out that far. Long people go out there as farmers, people have houses down through there, and people come back from town. Well, I put the truck up in the third gear, and of course the truck sped up, and this thing sped up with me. Well, as it was running next to me, it would look down the road, it would look at me, it looked down the road, it looked at me, and it repeated that process several times. And I remember thinking, I have 1 gear left besides reverse. And like I said, this was a 4-speed manual truck, and I knew I had 1 gear left, and I knew that if I couldn't outrun this thing, I was probably going to be at dinner. It was probably going to say, screw the deer, I'm going to get the thing inside the truck. Well, I put the truck down in the 4th gear, and I sped up, and this thing still kept with me. And even with it in the back of the truck, I thought this, even as it was running alongside the truck, it was about maybe 4 feet running alongside the truck, maybe even 5 feet. It was close. If I had real long arms, long as what I have, I could roll down the window and probably touch it. And I have no doubt in my mind that it could have broke through the glass either on the driver's side door or through the back glass, extracted me from the vehicle. There wouldn't have been a thing I could have done about it. And like I said, I put it in 4th gear, and this thing was keeping up with me, and it would look down the road, look at me, look down the road, look at me. And if I had to guess, this went on for about a mile. And I'm not sure how fast I was going, but I believe that I might have been doing anywhere between 50 to 60 miles an hour. And my mistake was shifting too fast. That was my mistake. If I had not shifted as fast, I could have gained more speed and probably left it. But my mistake was I was trying to get out of there, so I just shifted gears without really thinking about it. Well, I'm not sure whether it got tired or it just gave up, but it started slowing down, and I watched it in the rear view mirror just slow to a stop and just look. And I went up over this hill, and I never saw it after that. I couldn't see it. Well, I went flying back down to my uncle's house, and like I said, that property is 4 miles from my uncle's farm. And one of my thoughts racing through my mind was, this thing is going to cut through the woods somehow, and it's going to flank me, and it's going to get me when I get to my uncle's house. Well, my uncle's house, you can see it from the road. You can see the farm from the road. And it's a dirt road, and I went flying down the dirt road, and I actually didn't even bother to park the truck under the carport. I just went and parked it in the middle of the field, and I got out of the truck hauling, yelling bloody murder, yelling, help me, Uncle, help me. He come out of the house because he'd seen the headlights going down the road, and he heard me blowing the horn and everything. And when I got almost to the house, he yelled, boy, what is the matter with you? What is all this ruckus about? And I got to him finally, and I caught my breath, and I told him, and he said that I stuttered, because there's a lot of this I actually did not remember until I talked to him and some other people from that night. And he said I was stuttering, and he said that these were my exact words, that I saw a werewolf. And I don't remember saying that, and I don't remember what happened next, but my uncle told me that he said that he just looked at me and just kind of laughed off and asked me if I'd been drinking. I told him, no, sir, I've not been drinking. And he just kind of said he laughed off, and y'all just chalked it up as a prank, and he asked me where the deer was at. I told him the story. He asked me where the deer. I said, I don't know where the deer's at. I said, I don't know if it's in the back of the truck or where it's at. I said, I don't give a. I said, if that thing got the deer, I said, we can have it. I don't want it. I said, I just want to get out of here. So I got my keys and I got back in my car. Well, it's not actually my car. It was my girlfriend's car, because my truck was actually in the shop being worked on at the time without a lady rear end me. And my girlfriend did not work this particular day, so she let me drive the car to school and drive down to my uncle's house. Well, I hauled butt home. And again, I had the fear that this thing was following me. So when I got home, I put the car in the garage, and our garage is right next to the kitchen. So there's a door you can go into through the garage or through the kitchen and go into either one. And I was fumbling with my keys after I shut the garage door, and I just knew that this thing was going to come beating on the garage door trying to get in and kill me. Well, I finally unlocked the door. I was yelling for my girlfriend, yelled her name. She come out of our bedroom. She said, what are you yelling about at this time? And I told her, I said, baby, get in the bathroom. She said, what have I got to get in the bathroom for? And I told her, I said, get in the bathroom. She said, why do I got to get in the bathroom? And I told her, I called her name. I said, now, get in the bathroom. And looking back on it now, I've told her since then that I apologize for talking to her the way I did, yelling at her. But after I did that, I went immediately to my gun safe. I'm not going to say where my gun safe in my house is at, but I went to my gun safe and I got my daddy's pump shotgun that he left me after he died. And I loaded it with buckshot. I loaded it full, and I posted up down a hallway so I could see this thing come in either through the front, the back, or through the garage in the kitchen. And I had actually fell asleep, and I did not have a nightmare at this time. I actually woke up to my girlfriend beating on the door, telling me to let her blankety blank out of there. And so I let her out. So I locked her in there is what I did. And actually put a chair up against the doorknob so she couldn't get out. And she come out and she just let into me. She let me have it. She wanted to know why I locked her in there, why she had to go in there. I told her, I said, baby, I had something happen to me in the woods. I said, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. I said, I don't really want to talk about it. And she was kind of braiding. She said, what happened to you to make you so scared? I told her, I said, I don't want to talk about it. And she knew that I was being serious. And she told me, she said, Gage, put the gun down. And I told her, I said, I'm not comfortable putting the gun down. She said, Gage, put the gun down. I just looked at it, and then I kind of thought about it for a second. And I thought, well, nothing's happened now. I believe I'm safe. And at that moment, I felt this calm come over me that I was now safe. But I was still shook up big. And I put the gun down, and she hugged me, and I kissed her, and she rubbed my back again. I took me a shower, and I went to bed. Now, when I went to bed, I did not sleep hardly at all that night. Every time I go to sleep, I'd see that thing's face in the back windshield when my headlamp caught it in the face. I'd see its eyes dilate, and I'd see the breath fog up the back windshield. And it was several weeks after that we were actually laying in bed one day, and she likes to read, and I was fiddling with my phone. I was going through Facebook, and I actually was not looking at anything on Facebook. I was just scrolling, but in my mind I was thinking about this because the day prior, like I said, this happened several weeks after my encounter. The day before she asked me, she said, "Babe, let me ask you a question." I said, "Okay." And I'd had a long day at work. She knew I was tired. She said, "Do you want to talk about what happened to you?" And I told her, I said, "Baby, I don't want to talk about it right now. I'm not sure that I can." And I said, "I'll tell you when I get ready." She said, "That's fine." She said, "When you get ready, you can tell me." And I was thinking about what happened to me, and I was thinking about how I was going to tell her without her calling the men from the flame farm and the white coach to come get me. And I knew that there was no other way that I could just sugarcoat it. Well, I told her, I said, "Babe, I want to talk to you about what happened to me." And she said, "Okay." And I began my story just like I'm telling you about getting out of school and everything, and going to my uncle's and hunting and killing the doe, and then leading up to everything else that happened. At the beginning of the story, I'm sure she was just thinking, well, you probably just saw a bear. Let me tell you something, I've seen just about everything there are in these woods. I've seen black bear, which are honey bear, they call them honey bears down here in the South. And I've seen cougars, and contrary to popular belief, there are actually cougars in Alabama. Game wardens won't admit it, but there are cougars in Alabama all over, especially around there down Mobile. And they won't admit it because there's actually, I believe, an overpopulation. Because not just me, but there's other hunters that have seen one. I actually had one jump out in front of my truck one day while I was going to work. Well, as I got to telling her what happened, she went from listening to me. Of course, she was already listening. But she went from listening to me to being, I'd say, on the edge of her seat. When I got done, she just looked at me and she said, "Baby, I had no idea you went through that." And she said, "I don't believe you're lying to me because, one, you just can't make something like that up." She said, "The people in Hollywood that make these movies and everything," she said, "they may be able to touch on it." She said, "But there's just no way. You can't come up with something like that. You can't write this stuff." And again, she calmed me down, and I was not able to go back out to the woods for months after that. I didn't actually go back hunting until 3 weeks before deer season ended, but I did not go up back to my uncle's place. I actually went with a friend down to his hunting club in Titus, Alabama, and I'm actually a member there now. I had nightmares for a very long time, and majority of the time, it was about seeing the face in the back glass, back rearview mirror, well, in the back windshield, excuse me. Seeing that, I'd just see that, and it'd wake me up. I'd wake up in a cold sweat. And then I had this one particular dream. One time, I had it only one time. And the best I can describe it, it was a dream within a dream. What I mean by that is, in my dream, I was dreaming, and I woke up from the dream, only to find out that I was still dreaming, and then I actually woke up. Well, in the dream within the dream, I dreamed of the back glass again, and the face in the back glass. And in my dream, I woke up, and my girlfriend said, "Gage, what's wrong?" I turned and looked at her, and it was that thing laying in bed next to me. And about that time, I really did wake up, and I pinched myself just to make sure that I was awake. And my girlfriend actually did wake up, and she said, "Baby, what's wrong?" And I told her, I said, "I just had a real bad dream." She said, "Was it that thing in the back of the truck that night?" And I said, "Yeah, it was." And we actually got up and went in the kitchen and ate a bowl of ice cream. I wasn't able to go back to sleep after that, but I laid there in bed with her. And after my encounter, I felt like I was in prison. And what I mean by that is, the best way I can describe it is, if you've ever seen a mime or the people from France that act like they box themselves in or pull imaginary rope. It felt like an invisible glass prison that was around me, because I felt like I was the only one that had ever seen this thing. And after I started eventually doing my own research, like I said, I bought books, talked to people. I actually talked to some friends of mine that I grew up with, and people that were friends of my friends, others that had seen these things too. And there were 6 of them. 3 of them said that they had heard things in the woods that they could not explain. Smelled things, but they didn't know what it was. They never physically saw one. The other 3, 2 of them had basically the same experience, and they saw basically what I did. It was tall. It had reddish brown fur. And one walked out into a green field, looked at my friend that was in the deer stand, just stared him down and walked off. The other one said that he saw something that was tall, big, red, brownish fur, but it stayed to the edge of the green field and didn't pay any mind to him. And he said both of them said they sat in the tree stand for hours and just didn't move. And they got out of there before it got dark and they could finally move. But the last one, who was a very good friend of mine, and I trust him, said that he saw one time while hunting. He didn't give me too many specifics because he didn't really want to talk back, and I understand that. I mean, I really do. And he told me that it was a grayish silver color. And I actually called him today to make sure I actually called all of them to make sure that it was okay for me to share this. Every single one of them said it was okay. And I asked this one friend in particular that he was close to it. He was actually pretty close. He was sitting in a shooting house and he saw it. And it was during rifle season. And it was no more than, I believe he said that if he had to guess, it was no more than 15 to 20 feet away from him. And I asked him, I said, well, can you remember any particular details? And he said, well, the fur on it was not long, but kind of a medium, but when it got towards the belly, it thinned out. Vic, that's exactly how I can describe mine. He said this thing was big, and it looked like a bodybuilder. And he said it made Hulk Hogan or Arnold Schwarzenegger look, like a would-be wimp, And he said the one thing that stuck out to him was one eye was actually put out. Well, he said put out, but he went on to later describe it. It was kind of a milky color. And the other one, he said, looked just black. He said it was just black eyes, like a doll's eyes. And he said the other eye, like I said, was a milky color. And he said he reckoned that it had just been put out or something had happened to it. He said it may have been born like that. He don't know. And after talking to them, I didn't feel so much alone anymore. I didn't feel isolated. But I still wanted to know what had happened to me. Like I said, did my own research and everything. I prayed about Steve. I'm a religious man. I believe there is a God. I have no saying I've heard that I repeat to people. I would rather die believing there is a God and find out that there's not one than die not believing there's God and find out there is one. And I'm very religious, like I said. I prayed about it and I prayed about it. And in a way, I believe God has brought me to this point in my life to right now to be able to share my experience with other people. And the reason for that being, I believe, is to help spread the word that these things are real, and they are out there, and they are not gentle giants or anything. These things will kill you. I can attest to that. And like I said, I prayed about it, and I prayed about it. Well, one day, I was scrolling through things about werewolves and Dog Man. And I actually found a website, which is your website, Dog Man Encounters, and I started listening to them. I didn't listen in order. I just kind of skipped around. And after I got to listen, I listened to it for about 4 hours, like just in a row, sat at my computer. And I thought to myself, golly, bro, I'm not the only one. Like, this is not isolated like I had thought. Like, it's just in Alabama. This is happening all over the United States, Michigan, Washington, Virginia, all across Texas, just happening all across. And it dawned on me, there has to be a lot of these things, and it's not just one thing moving around state to state. That's impossible. And me and my girlfriend actually listen to you when we can, and listen to you in the car, truck in the morning, coming home, going somewhere. We'll just sit on the couch and listen to it, hook up the laptop to the speaker and everything, and we'll eat, listen to just about everything else. We thoroughly enjoy your show, and she actually encouraged me here about maybe 2 weeks ago to actually contact you. And I told her, I said, well, I don't know if I want to do that. She said, well, Gage, he talks to hundreds of people every day. And she said, it might just help you. She said, because, you'd be talking to somebody that knows more about it, what you've done research on, somebody that has experience with my own self, seeing. And, Vic's talked to a lot of people, hundreds a day probably, and he knows what he's talking about, Gage. You need to get in contact with him. Well, as you know, I told you I sat at my computer for about an hour contemplating whether I wanted to tell you my story or not, because like I told you, there's a difference for me between typing it and actually telling it to you. There's a difference in me and you both actually know from last night when we talked that I had to get pretty comfortable. It did take me a while, but I'm more comfortable now. I've tried not to stutter or take as many pauses that I've had to. And Vic, I just really appreciate everything you've helped me with, man. I mean, I really appreciate it, brother.
Well, you're welcome. I'm so glad your girlfriend encouraged you to reach out and contact me about this. After having talked about that encounter last night, and after talking about the encounter tonight, how much has it helped you to get that out now?
It feels like such a relief, like a cloud has been lifted above my head, like a giant pressure has just been taken off of my shoulders and my chest. I mean, I feel so much better about it. I don't know how to thank you, Vic. I really don't.
The thanks that I get is when I talk with an eyewitness like you. And for example, I listened to all the trouble you had last night telling me about what had happened for the first time. And then I sit here and I listen to you talk about what happened tonight, the second time around. Being able to hear you do so much better tonight than you did last night when you were reliving that experience, that's all the thanks I need. That tells me right there that you're definitely getting better, and that's what this is all about. So that's just great news in my opinion. How far do you live from where that encounter happened?
I live, okay, I'm going to do some math here. I live about 15 miles from my uncle. So about 19 miles from where it happened.
That's pretty far. Did anything ever happen after your encounter that led you to believe that it might have followed you home?
No, sir, it did not. For a while, but I'd go out to my truck in the morning. That way I could go to school or go to work. Because normally when I go to work, I wake up pretty early. I have to be at my place of work pretty early. I could be there about 6 o'clock. Because we officially open at 7, and we have to be ready to go. Because we actually do have a schedule. Because people actually do schedule, for heat and air technicians come out. And we have to be there by 6, and 6:15 is actually the latest we can come in. And we officially open at 7, and that's when we start doing our routes to go work and get people estimates on their heating and air condition, whatever problem they may be having, or even quoting them a price for getting a new one. When I go out in the morning, especially when I got to work, I'm more cautious going out to my truck in the morning because, again, it's dark, and more cautious about it because I just kind of look around. And one thing I forgot to mention, I live in a neighborhood, but the neighborhood in the back is actually woodland, and the houses are not right next to each other. There's probably a good maybe 50 yards in between each house. I guess you'd say it's more of a rural kind of feeling neighborhood. But it's a nice neighborhood. Everybody gets along and everything. Everybody knows everybody. But back behind the houses, like I said, there's woodland. And not too far after that, you can hear the highway, 759. You can hear it. I'm definitely cautious about that, but to answer your question, I've never felt like it's followed me home, because I believe if it did, I would have had more encounters than what I've had, and I've only had that one. And honestly, I believe it would have maybe messed with me, to toy with me a little bit at my own house, and I'm just thankful that didn't happen.
Oh, I don't blame you. Yeah, if it would have followed you home, I'm sure you would have known about it. You would have at least had a funny feeling or something like that. When you flipped on the marine light in the bed of that truck, did it seem to bother the dog, man? You talked about how you thought it might have blinded it, but did it seem to bother it?
Well, like I told you, when I first saw it, I was not turning around. I was actually looking in the rear view mirror, and I could not see the head. But I know from personal experience, when my girlfriend come into the bedroom or something, I'm actually awake. She'll flip on the bathroom light. That sometimes it'll blind me, or, just when somebody comes into a room, cuts the light on, it may be daylight coming in through the window, it'll still blind you. And I know that if this thing has regular eyeballs like a human does, or anything else, that it probably stunned it, maybe blinded it the first time. I don't know about the second time. I feel confident that it did that second time, because just something twice in a row like that, I knew that would blind me. I've had it happen to me. But I believe that it did blind it. Again, I did not see the head when this happened. I did not see the head until after I cut the marine light on the second time, and it had lowered its head to look into the back windshield. And like I said, it wasn't quite against the glass, but it was making its way there. It was just kind of looking in.
Well, considering the fact these things have a hair-triggered temper, if it would have made it angry, you would have known about it. So we don't have to guess about that. Which one of its physical features disturbed you most?
Its eyes. They were, the color that I said they were mixed between a hazel and a brown. But the look it was giving me, it showed me his teeth, it just gave me this, look, I guess it's the best way I can describe it. Look, I'm going to kill you look, I guess, or your dinner look. And I believe I wouldn't have snapped out of it as quick as I did if he, I don't know the sex. I say he, because down south we call things he all the time, but I don't believe I would have snapped out of it had the thing not twitched its eyebrow. I wouldn't. That's one thing I got to mention. It twitched its eyebrow, and that's when I tried to get out of there, press the gas, and also it didn't move parking brake zone. But I could not tell the sex of it. I'm not sure that I want to know. And the reason I say that is because I've broke Western stallions before in my life, and females are the hardest ones to do from my personal experience, my family's personal experience, and breaking horses and everything. So if it was female, I wouldn't want to know about it. But if it was male, I still don't want to know about it. But I'll give it this. That was a pretty ballsy move, getting up in the back of the truck and looking into the back glass.
Oh, I'd say it was. Yeah, they don't seem to fear much of anything, if anything at all, so I'm not surprised it did that. How would you describe its arms?
Its arms were long, like real long arms. It reminds me of kind of like my own arms. So when I played baseball players, you want real long muscles, which you want like real lean, long muscles. And the body of this thing looked like, kind of like a bear, and ripped. Like I said, they'd make Hulk Hogan or Arnold Schwarzenegger look puny. But the arms were real long. I couldn't tell because it was squatted down in the back of the truck. It was not stand up, it was squatted down. And claws were real long, but again, I could not tell in proportion to it standing up. And on the elbows seemed to be more fur, kind of hung down right there. It was not patchy or anything like it had the veins or anything. It was not. It was just all there. The hair was all there. And towards the center of the elbow where you bend your arm, the hair was kind of thinned out right there. Like I said, the hand on it, tall hand. Reminds me of what the raccoons looks like with the claws, hand, wet wings. That's what it reminds me of.
That had to be a sight to see. How long were its claws?
I'm not sure. If I had to guess, maybe 2, maybe 3 inches long. Maybe, I don't know. But the one thing I noticed, the nails on them, they weren't like black, kind of like a dog's claws would be, and they weren't clear either. They were kind of a yellowish color, kind of a dirty looking color, kind of like when you have I had athlete's foot one time, played football, and one of my toenails had actually got infected, and it turned kind of a yellowish brown color, and it was nasty. But that's what it reminds me of, about 2.5, 3 inches long, and it was kind of like that brownish yellow color that your toenail can kind of turn when it's infected. That's the color that it reminds me of.
It sounds like they're more than long enough to do some serious damage. Can you go into the woods now without a gun?
I don't like to. Like I told you, I carry my 45 with me everywhere I go, except while I'm inside the house. I've stepped outside into the woods for back behind my house without a gun. I don't like to.
Oh, I can understand that, now that you know they're out there. How jumpy are you in the woods now, even with a weapon?
Well, Vic, it's like I told you, during my whole encounter, I had my 45 with me. But at no point did I think to use it. And I'm not sure that even if I had my daddy's pump or my 45 or a rifle with me, or let alone my bow, that if I walked up on one of these things or it walked up on me, I'm not sure if I could pull the trigger or not, if I could defend myself. I'm not even sure that if I did shoot one of these things, that it wouldn't even phase it. I'm not even sure if it would phase it. I might pull my 45 out, put 3 rounds in the chest. It might not even phase it, Vic. I don't know. As far as being comfortable, it kind of gives me a security, but in a way it's kind of like a false sense of security because I know what these things can do.
Well, when you consider how many times these things have been shot without any desirable effect, that makes sense. You're wise to not be all that sure about how effective a gun's going to be against one. Do you think all dogmen should be destroyed?
Well, Vic, honestly, I've never thought about that. I can't say that I wish they'd all be destroyed. I can't say that because they're one of God's creatures, and I have no right to go and wage a mass genocide on all of them. I have no right to do that. So to answer your question, no, I don't think they should all be destroyed. I don't. I just wish there were fewer number of them.
When you have an experience like the one you had, when you have such a strong fear reaction, anger normally accompanies that. Maybe not at the time of the experience, but normally not all that long after you have that experience. There's a phase you normally go through where you have anger. You're angry because this thing took away your ability to enjoy the woods you used to. It took away your ability to do a lot of things you used to like doing. Your grandpa knew a farmer who he thinks was killed by a dog man. What did he tell you about that?
Well, it wasn't too long after I finally opened up to my granddaddy about my encounter, and the reason it took me so long is because my granddad is one of these types of men. He doesn't fool around, beat around the bush. I'm the same way, Vic. I finally opened up to him, and he told me, he said, son, that is what we call boogers. And he said, that is the reason that your grandmama and I and your mom and your daddy always told you and everybody else people in the South always tell their children, don't go in the woods at night because the booger man will get you. I can attest to that is very, very true. But he told me, he said, son, I want to tell you a story. And he said, I did not see it. He said, but I believe the man that I knew, that my family knew, was killed by one. And at this point, I was kind of in shock. I'm like, really? And he proceeded to tell me this story. And he told it like this. There was a farmer that was a neighbor of my granddad's. And when I say neighbor, I don't mean right next to the farm. I'm talking about miles down the road. That's what you'd be considered back then, a neighbor for a farmer. And they hadn't seen this particular farmer, neither my grandparents' parents or my granddad's parents, or any of the other farmers hadn't seen him come in town lately. Well, they all got together because they thought he might be sick and decided to go down to his farm and see if they could help him. And my granddad said as they all drove up, they were driving old Ford pickups and Chevy pickups. Somebody was actually, he told me, in a hunchback sedan, and pulled up at his house, and he said it just looked like a regular farm, like nothing was going on. And he said it did not happen until they got out of the vehicles that they could smell something. Now, this man was a dairy farmer. He had goats and he had sheep. He also had chickens and pigs. But my granddad told me that they just smelled this real horrible smell, like something had died. And my granddad told me they had not seen this man in town for 3 or 4 days. And it was at the end of the 3 or 4 days that they decided to go look for him at his house, see if he was sick or see if he was okay. And he said that they all spread out between one another, about 8, 9 foot in between them. They were all walked in a line going down the pasture where the smell was coming from. They said that when they got there, that his sheep had been slaughtered, and they found the farmer in the middle, or just about in the middle of the pasture towards the barn and facing the direction of the barn, and he was laying on his back, and he had gashes in his back. And my granddad said that his daddy blocked him from seeing it, but my granddad said, being a little squirt that I was, he jumped from behind his daddy, and the men in front of his daddy and him had rolled the farmer over and said that he had just been mutilated, that there were pieces of flesh missing, like something ate on him, and said that his throat had been, what he said, eat out, like something took a bite out of his throat. And my granddad described the body to me. He said that he'd been laying in the sun for a while, so it started to go ahead and dry up and start to rot. And he said that, I believe it's called rigor mortis, had already set in where the body had went stiff. And he said that the man's shotgun was laying close to his body, and there was one spent shell. And he said whatever it was had to have been big, had claws, and didn't mind a load of buckshot. And he told me then, he said that when him and his daddy got home, his daddy took him to the barn and told him, he said, son, he said, don't you tell your mama or your sisters about what you saw. He said, because the booger got, my granddad said that he can't remember the farmer's last name, but he knows that his name was William. And his dad said, my granddad's dad called him Toby. I'm not going to say my granddad's name, but my granddad's nickname to his dad was Toby. And he said, Toby, don't you tell your sisters or your mother what you saw, because the booger man had got William. And he said, if I hear you say anything about it to anyone, I will tan your hide. And well, eventually, obviously, a police report had to be filed. The body had to be collected. And my granddad told me the best he remembered that the sheriff and coroner in the paper had actually reported that it was a bear attack. But they didn't mention all the sheep had been killed. In the paper, he said, it said only a few of the sheep and the farmer had been killed by a bear, and that they were out looking for a bear at that time. And my granddaddy told me, he said, I knew it wasn't no bear. He said, because a bear, he didn't believe would be that brutal. It just wouldn't have done something that brutal, that gory.
It's typical they tried covering it up like that. Can you imagine going out that way? That'd be horrible.
Well, it's like I told you, when I was flying down that dirt road, and I had to make that turn. I knew one or two things was about to happen. If I didn't slow down, I was on foot in the truck, and I was either going to be killed, or I was on foot and have a wreck, be hurt. This thing was going to come down there and deal with me, and I was going to be by myself. And I have no doubt it would have killed me.
Well, I'm so glad you made it out of that situation in one piece. People you've spoken with about dogmen in your area seem to think dogmen only come out in the fall. Why is that?
Well, I actually thought this too until our conversation the other night. The reason we thought that, and I think I hadn't discussed it with any of the others yet, that we think that it may have only come out during particular times of the year towards the end of fall, the winter, and the spring, but it wasn't seen during the summer was because maybe it was hibernating, maybe they migrated, or maybe it was just too hot to come out during the day with all that fur. We really didn't know, so it was really just chalked up the theories about what it could be. And the one I tended to lean towards the most was that maybe they migrated up north to where it'd be a little bit cooler. So that's why there were more accounts up in the north than there was the south.
Well, it's not just you who have that idea. There are a lot of people who have that idea for some reason or the other. Yeah, they come out in the scorching heat of summer. They come out in the deathly cold temps of winter, even in nasty snowstorms, so there's no rhyme nor reason to when they're around. They're around all the time. You say you've learned to keep calm when you've had scary experiences. Do you think that helped you get through your encounter in one piece?
Yes, sir, I did. And to the audience, I'd like to iterate on what they just said. In scary experiences, when I played football, I played the position of wide receiver and tight end. I was given the ball to run a lot. Well, I had to run it into people that were trying to knock my head off and try to run 100 yards down the field and make a touchdown. Well, it's scary, and I don't care what any quarterback, running back, tight end, wide receiver tells you. If they ever tell you that they have never been scared to run a football, they're either lying or they've never ran a football in their life. But let me tell you something, it's scary when somebody is coming at you that's bigger than you, and just like running at you in general, they come up and they just rock you, just rock your world, and they hit you and tap you. It's scary, but I learned from playing football to keep calm, and what I do these breathing techniques, similar to what the military does. It's where you breathe in, you hold it for a couple of seconds, you let it back out, do the same thing again, lowers your heart rate. That's how I learned to do that, but when my encounter happened, I did not think twice about doing that. I didn't even do it. My heart rate, I'm sure, was through the roof, and I'm sure my adrenaline was pumping, trust me, it was. And my breath, I don't remember, but if I had to guess, my breath was probably ragged when I caught that thing in the face with my light on my head, and it was probably real quick, like like that. If I had to guess, I don't remember what my breath was like. I don't remember, but I have learned to keep calm in situations. Like I said, it all spawns from playing football in that type of situation, and I just take the situation as it is, and I just deal with it that way. But when I had my encounter, I did not know how to deal with it. I just knew, get that out.
Oh yeah, anyone would have been really shaken up by that experience. I don't care who you are. So that's only natural. Well, it's about time for us to get out of here, Gage. Do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Yes, Vic, I do. I want to tell the audience, be careful out there that these things are real and they do exist and they are dangerous. And I also like to say to anybody that is listening to the show that was like me, that wasn't sure about coming on, I encourage you, I really do, to come on and talk to Vic about your encounter. he will sit down, and he's very, very patient. He was very, very patient with me. He was understanding about a lot of stuff that I had to do in between our calls. We actually had several calls in one night due to some things that I had to do, and he was very patient about it. He's always been very courteous with me. I urge you to talk to him. I promise you that if you do, you'll feel better. And I promise you another thing, that Vic is not going to think you're crazy. He will not, because he knows these things are real. He's not out here to make money or anything. He's here to help people.
Well, thanks for the good words, and thanks so much for coming on the show. I really do appreciate you and your time. Like I told you before in the show, I can't tell you how happy I am to hear that this has helped you. That's such good news. Well, have a great night, okay?
You too, Vic. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.